Hi, and welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name's Mario, and I put out videos on clinical research, personal finance, and post-pandemic. I will be putting out some travel videos. This weekend, I'm going to try and put out two videos. The video you're watching right now is going to be on clinical research. It is going to be about CRO acquisitions and mergers. This was inspired by a Reddit thread that I read. And the next video that I'm going to put out is going to be on my FIRE journey and financial independence, retire early, and why I will be raising my FIRE number. I realize that's the intro that I currently have. I will at some point update the intro since uh, I've been going back and forth on this channel trying to figure out how to grow it to 1,000 subscribers. And it seems that some mix of clinical research and personal finance will get me there. Currently at 135 subscribers, hopefully trying to get to 1,000 by the end of the year. So if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this channel. I really do appreciate your support. All right, without further ado, let's get into today's topic, CRO mergers and acquisitions. Now, let me just give you a little bit of background. I've been through a few of these. I started off working with K-Force and in the K-Force Pfizer alliance. K-Force basically sold their clinical research division, and I ended up working for PharmaNet i3. PharmaNet i3 eventually changed their name to Inventive Health, and after my time there, Inventive Health became Syneos. So that is a rundown of the acquisitions. So I can go through my experience with Kforce to PharmaNet i3/Inventive. This was my first CRO position. I worked exclusively with Pfizer. I worked in the Kforce Pfizer alliance. It was all going great until one day we had a call that said the company is selling off their clinical research division. So we were given several options. One of them was to basically stay with Pfizer and align to Pfizer as long as we could. I loved working with Pfizer, so that was something I thought about. We were given the option to explore other opportunities and possible contracts. One of the things that sort of led me to lean toward doing this was that I gained quite a lot of Pfizer experience, and Pfizer has sort of their own way of working, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't only just know how to work with Pfizer and Pfizer systems. So that looked appealing to me. And obviously, the third option was to essentially voluntarily resign and go elsewhere. So I chose option two. Personally, I decided, all right, I knew Pfizer, I wanted something else. So I signed up to work for Ariad and then later Janssen. Um, so that's how that transition went. So I essentially was working for K-Force Pfizer, moved over to PharmaNet i3, still working for Pfizer, and then moved over to work for Ariad and then Janssen. The transitions weren't seamless. I do want to say it was interesting going from being with one company to another. Things like benefits packages were changing, salaries were realigned. There was lots of change. Systems were changing. You might be doing your timesheet in one system one week, and another system the next week. Same with expense reports, etc. It led to quite a bit of turnover, but it was all voluntary. So people basically said, okay, I want to go somewhere else, and they did so. In my case, I decided to stick it out. So I did make the change away from Pfizer to other pharma companies, but I still stuck with the CRO. So what led me to leave this position? Well, ultimately, Janssen made the decision that they wanted to exclusively work with either PRA or docs, and they no longer wanted to work with Inventive. So I was moved over from Inventive to docs as part of this transition. We were essentially given the opportunity to go over, so I did, and that's how I went through that. Docs, part of Icon. I was not there for the part where Icon and Docs merge, so I won't talk anything about that. However, later in my career, I was with Quintiles, and Quintiles joined forces and became Quintiles IMS, and then later became IQVIA. And similar, initially there weren't too many changes. Then there were some system changes, benefit changes, leadership changes, etc. I stayed through it all. It was perfectly fine. There were quite a few employees that turned over and went elsewhere. This is pretty common. I've noticed with CRO mergers, acquisitions, there is going to be turnover because people like stability. And usually with these acquisitions and mergers, there isn't a lot of stability. Not to say that you are at much risk of losing your job. I know in the pharmaceutical world, there's a lot of consolidation. So when pharma companies join forces, it's not uncommon to see a significant percentage of the workforce that's just laid off. This doesn't really happen in the CRO world. What happens more commonly is people voluntarily say, hey, the grass is greener on the other side. I'm going through a lot of change. Maybe if I go somewhere else, it'll be stable. I'm not one of those people. I've stuck through all these mergers, acquisitions. Like I said, the first time I stuck with Kforce all the way until Inventive, and all the way until the sponsor I was working with decided to work with a different CRO. With Quintiles slash IQVIA, I stuck through until there was a pandemic and my contract with them was not renewed. So those were the reasons that I ended those positions, but they were both not because of anything to do with the merger acquisition necessarily. They were just happenstance. So those are my experiences with CRO mergers, and that's why I would not hesitate to go to any of these CROs that are currently going through mergers, acquisitions. Just understand there will be change. There's always change in the industry. Things may be in a transition state when you get there, but, and I will say this repeatedly throughout my videos, if you're looking to learn different roles in clinical research, CROs are a great place to get a crash course. So if you want to be a very good monitor, getting a CRA role at a CRO allows you to hone in and really fine tune your monitoring skills. This is probably similar for study management or really any other CRO role. I've talked about this in my prior video a little bit about the pros and cons of going to a CRO versus going to a pharma company. One of the big pros is that at a CRO, you will really hone in and fine tune your skills within your role. The downside is if you want to explore other roles, it's not always the easiest to do at a CRO. So you can't be a CRA at a CRO and easily say, hey, I would like to do a month of quality assurance. That's just not going to happen. That's not how CROs work. At a pharma company, you might be able to say, hey, I want to shadow the quality assurance. And they're like, oh, sure, learn about this new role. So those are all my thoughts about the acquisitions. And there are lots of them going on now. PPD was just taken over by Thermo Fisher. We have the PRA being acquired by Icon, and there will be many more to come. I see a lot of consolidation in the future. So if you are thinking about these, just know that your role is probably safe. In all likelihood, you'll experience a lot of transitions. You'll see a lot of people leave. You'll see a lot of new people come in. You'll see a lot of leadership changes. So those are just things to be aware of. I wouldn't let it affect my decision of whether or not to join. That is a completely different decision. I think needs to be made independent of what kind of change the CRO is going through, because all these CROs are going to go through changes, and people lose contracts all the time. People gain contracts all the time. There is a need for people in certain areas. And a lot of places are flexible enough to move you from one area to another if need be. All right, that's everything I have to say on the topic. As always, just a quick reminder to hit that like button And if you enjoy content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. Stay tuned for my next video on personal finance if you're interested. It is going to be on the reasons that I've decided to raise my financial independence retire early number. Thank you for watching.